You must decide if you are going to rob the world or bless it with rich, valuable, potent, untapped resources locked within you. These words by the departed evangelist Dr. Myles Munroe challenge everyone who wants to make it in life, including me. Before his untimely demise in 2014, Dr. Munroe was estimated to be worth more than $3 million, but his wealth has grown abundantly since then. At the time of his passing on, he was among the most influential and wealthiest televangelists globally. His powerful messages about the kingdom and prosperity elicited mixed reviews, but the Bahamian preacher was a classic example of from rags to riches for those who followed him. He proved that anyone, regardless of background, can become financially successful. But how did Dr. Myles Munroe become a millionaire? Let me break it down for you. But before that, if you are new here, consider subscribing to this channel to continue receiving great videos like this. Also check in the description below some excellent resources that will change your life from good to the life you deserve. Let's get started. Poverty as a motivating factor. While most of us use poverty as an excuse for not trying harder or realizing our goals, that wasn't Myles Munroe. Munroe was born to poverty in a simple town in the Bahamas called Nassau in 1954. He and 10 of his siblings shared a 2-bedroom house, sleeping on the floor among the cockroaches and rats. Things were even worse in school, where an English teacher named Mr. Robertson would refer to him as Black Monkey. The racist teacher would call him retarded and argue that black people like Munroe could never learn anything sophisticated. How insulting! The insults got into the young boy, and he went back home and shared with his mom. His mom instructed him to read Ephesians chapter 3, verse 10, which says, "Now unto him that can do exceedingly abundantly, and above all that we ask of him." Though Munroe wasn't a Christian then, the scripture planted a new thinking in his mind, and he started to develop a different perception about life. Knowing God makes a difference. Munroe started reading the Bible more when he realized that his fate was not in the English teacher's hands but God's. He was motivated first to read the first 4 books of the New Testament to understand who God was. His love for the Creator grew each day, and even his perception of life. He was so motivated to know God more that he took up theology and fine arts at the Oral Roberts University in 1978. His education has a role to play. Myles Munroe proves these words by Benjamin Franklin to be true. Investment in knowledge pays the best dividend. Munroe didn't just pursue theology and fine arts, but he went on to obtain a master's degree in administration at the University of Tulsa 2 years later. The master's degree would later see him land a top business coach job, paying him handsomely. A few years later, Munroe received several honorary doctoral degrees. His CV was outstanding, and that saw him get hired as a theology professor at Oral Roberts University. So he got his first decently paying job as a university professor. But that didn't make him rich. No, it's what he did after that. Path to evangelism. After graduating from Tulsa University, Munroe could only think of one thing: to serve God. So he and his wife founded the Bahamas Faith Ministry, BFMI, and that's how his evangelism journey began. He also established the Myles Munroe International, MMI, a Christian outreach center that featured leadership training institutes, a television network, a church community, and a publishing company. It's through Myles Munroe International that he was able to create a considerable amount of wealth during his early years. While Munroe was often criticized in his country, the Bahamas, he was embraced overwhelmingly in Africa because of his nail-hitting biblical doctrines. That saw him being appointed as the chairman of the International Third World Leaders Association. According to him, the greatest tragedy in life is not death but life without a purpose. So he fulfilled his purpose in Africa and even went back at home, where his message angered a few. His emphasis on the kingdom during his preaching saw many people listen to him, and his fame only grew. Of course, the fame came up with call-ups, and the call-ups came with fact checks. Motivational speaking and the money. Having established himself as an evangelist, Myles Munroe saw it easy to double up as a motivational speaker. Some of his famous sermons and talks are still played today on YouTube and other avenues. He became a top sought-after motivational speaker not just in the Bahamas but globally, and that saw many people approach him with mega compensation packages. During his international preaching and inspirational events, Myles Munroe would pull crowds of about 500,000 yearly. Mark you, most of them were business leaders, government officials, students, and of course Christians. Myles traveled to about 80 countries to give lectures, and each time he did it, he came back with a fat wallet, the books, and the money. A large part of Munroe's wealth during his lifetime was attributed to his authorship prowess. Before his death, the evangelist had authored more than 38 books, of which 16 were bestsellers. The books would bring in substantial revenue. They would touch on everything from family and relationship to finance and spiritual growth. Impressively, most of his books were even translated to Portuguese and Spanish to cover a more extensive global readership. Some of his bestsellers, which I think you should read if you are the reading type, include Rediscover the Kingdom, In Pursuit of Purpose, Overcoming the Crisis, Waiting and Dating, Becoming a Leader, Fatherhood Principle. His books have changed many people's lives, and people still read them even though he's no longer here with us. Myles Munroe as a business consultant. Myles Munroe was a man of many talents, and it wasn't just authoring, preaching, and mentoring. He also served as a business consultant for the Fortune 500, a magazine that ranks the top 500 best-performing corporations globally based on revenue. So he pocketed some fat checks from his business coaching exploits and used them to grow his wealth. That was owing to his master's degree in administration that he obtained from the university. Takeaway: when Myles died in an airplane crash in 2014, the world mourned him. But as he would always say, the biggest tragedy in life is not death, but a life without a purpose. Munroe fulfilled his purpose as an evangelist, mentor, business coach, motivational speaker, and author. He proved that poverty is only temporary and doesn't define anyone. For one, getting a good education is an excellent step to changing one's humble upbringing. By pursuing education, you can shape your future as you want. Myles also provided that the color of skin doesn't define one's ability. It doesn't surprise that the English teacher, Mr. Robertson, who once called him Black Monkey, would later approach him during a book signing in the UK and apologize. Of course, he did that after witnessing his success. Munroe would respond to him with these words, "Don't you ever again underestimate a human." Myles forgave him and the two hugged. He would later say, "Don't accept the opinion of others as they do not see what great and valuable potential is inside of you," in his sermons. But again, we also learn about the power of forgiveness from Munroe and Mr. Robertson, which is critical to succeeding. The other important takeaway is that you shouldn't limit yourself. You cannot underestimate your capability. Munroe was a man of many attributes, and they all made him a success. A preacher, business coach, motivational speaker, author, and lecturer. That's what Munroe was known for. Remember, your existence is evidence that the generation needs something that your life contains, according to Myles Munroe. And when you believe in your dreams and vision, then it begins to attract its resources. Lastly, you must understand your purpose and pursue it. Myles understood that his purpose was to challenge and inspire the world, and he did that through his motivational books and lectures. So you too should find your purpose. According to Munroe, purpose is when you know and understand what you were born to accomplish. And if you want to become successful, seek to become a person of value. Munroe became valuable through his lectures and sermons, and people paid him to grace their stations. So find your value and people will pay for it. Don't go to the grave with treasures still within you. Here is another excellent video for you, 7 Spheres of Wealth by Dr. Myles Munroe. Until next time, take care.